Welcome to If People Only Knew, the show that brings untold stories to light. I'm your host, Anna Matson. Let's get started. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. We have Tiffany Cianci. I'm very Italian, so I want to say it the actual Italian way, Cianci, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay. We'll say it the American way, Cianci. But we're just having some fun because we had some major technical difficulties. This is my first running it myself virtual podcast. I've been on other people's virtual podcasts, but not my own. So thankfully, Tiffany loves me.
She does. She does.
But I am honestly so honored that we are friends. And I'm so honored for you to be on this show because you are Wonder Woman in real life. You really are. You are a badass bitch. And, as a small business owner, I am so lucky that you are on our side, and all small businesses are so lucky to have you advocating for us. And so many don't even know you exist. And we need to get your story out there. Everyone needs to know what you've been through. And you could have let everything take you down, but you've used it to keep pushing forward and to advocate for others so they know their rights and to get in front of politicians to change laws. And we'll get into all of this, but that's my little introduction. So this is going to be all about how you even got into advocating for small businesses, running your own small business, where we are today, and your bright, bright future ahead of you, because there's so much fun stuff going on. I like to start my episodes kind of going into maybe your childhood or your early life, like whatever you kind of want to share. I know that's kind of like odd after we just talked about like small business a little bit, but I just think it gives some good background on like who you are and where you came from if you would like to share.
Sure. So, when I was very young, I was the grandkid of two super hardworking people that had like the American dream that started off on farms, ended up owning like 9 small businesses that were very successful. My grandparents owned a bowling alley, a nightclub, an RV lot, an RV repair center, a gas station, just small business after small business. And they were the hardest working people I knew. As a little kid, I grew up on the RV lot. I would walk around like at 3 years old. I would walk up to customers and say like, "Excuse me, sir, how can I help you?" And that was like the work ethic that was brought into me was I was at work from morning until night. And that's just the way it was. In like 1980, I want to say 6 or 7, I think it was 87, our government decided that all of the small businesses in San Diego didn't need to exist anymore. Our government reevaluated the valuation of the peso. And back then, the border was quite open. And about 80% of our business came from Mexico across the border to our businesses. And they devaluated the peso to a point where it was worthless compared to American money, literally. And overnight, tens of thousands of businesses in San Diego collapsed, including all of ours.
Wow.
Everything we'd ever worked for. And in like this one fell swoop, San Diego was remade. Every working class person that lived there was forced out, and wealthy people moved in. It was really like one of the first looks I had at what it meant when the government chose winners and chose losers. They said it was better for all of us that they did that with the peso. They said it was good for us, but they didn't have a safety net for the people they destroyed in the process. They didn't help them prepare, and we lost everything.
Wow. How old were you around that time?
I was like 6. I went
Wow.
from being fairly, like, I don't want to say wealthy, but very upper middle class
Okay.
in a very nice area, in a very nice home, to losing everything. We
Wow.
lost everything. The debt that we couldn't pay, like, forced my grandparents into bankruptcy. These were people that had never owed a bill to anyone in their lives, had never had a debt they never paid. And it ruined my grandparents. Like it destroyed them. We moved to Las Vegas because that was supposed to be a place with more opportunity for people about a year and a half later. Um, but the year we got there, we invested a bunch of money in starting something new. And due to arson, it was burned down. There was an arson fire that took our investment with it.
Wow.
So everything we had left was gone. And my grandparents went to like working at like a pharmacy and like a gas station at like 75 years old. After their retirement had been set and they were retired, they went back to working their butts off.
That's crazy.
After my grandpa died, there was a good long period where I ended up, I lived in a foster household, like in a kinship care household. And so I have a lot of foster siblings. And I've had a job since I was 13. I had my first nannying job when I was 10. I nannied for 3 boys all summer long, starting at 10 every summer. Yeah. And so I've always worked, always been hardworking.
Yeah.
I moved out when I was about 15 years old. I graduated high school as a junior.
Wow.
2 years ahead because I had started school a year early. So I graduated when I was like almost 16. And I just kind of kept working and never looked back.
Wow. So you grew up real fast, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did.
So after that, where did your life take you?
I feel like God gave me all these like touch points. I'm not going to talk too much about religion. I am Catholic and I do a faith, but like all these touch points for frames of reference to help me be where I am right now. None of them were easy, but I do feel like they were important. Like I answered an ad in a paper and got a job working at a student loan company. I worked for the federal government at like 17 years old in one of their what was called the later age servicing units for USA US what's it called back then, USA funds. It was like they were the main guarantor back then of all government backed student loans. And I was in the later age department where I saw student loans destroying lives every day. And I had to go through like security clearance checks to have access to people's tax records and stuff. And I was a minor. I don't even know how they let me do it, if I'm being honest. I have no idea why they let me do that.
Did you live in DC at that time, I'm assuming?
No, they had an offsite campus in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was in Las Vegas. I ended up going to North Carolina because I got married young. My husband was in the military. So I went to Fort Bragg. I got into a military spouses program at UNC from my grades in school. Kept working, never stopped working. Studied philosophy and marketing. And while I was there, UNC, right before I was going to graduate, eliminated their marketing degree. So I went, so I went back to Las Vegas and finished at UNLV.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then you have baby children, right?
Yeah. I have
When did
3
they
kids.
come along?
One while I was in North Carolina. And then I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then at what point did you decide to start your own business?
I'll keep saying there were touch points, right? All these places. My oldest daughter was really sick, like really sick. I have a genetic disease that makes it so I can't fight chicken pox. And I got chicken pox while I was pregnant with her. And she was born with underdeveloped kidneys as a result.
Wow.
So she had 1 bilateral kidney reimplantation surgery on her 5th birthday. And then she had a second one after that one failed when she was 7.5.
Wow.
And during that time, bills were really high, and I was a young mom. And frankly, at this point, I'd become a single mom. And I just started working really, really hard. I got a good job. I was very good at what I did, but it required an immense amount of travel. I was traveling back and forth to Japan mostly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You've
I
been
got,
all over.
I mean, military. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was traveling back and forth to Japan, and that was fine for a while because I had some support, help with my oldest. I had my now husband. We met when she was 2. Um, we but I worked my tail off to put him through law school. Back then, we were working as Vegas was like our home base,
Okay.
and during the '08 crash,
Mm.
Vegas did not fare well at
Mm-hmm.
all. Our housing market crashed. Our tourism market crashed. We looked around and realized if we didn't get out of there, we were never, ever going to have a secure future.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I would work really hard to put my husband through law school if he promised to work hard for the rest of us forever. That was the
Mm-hmm.
deal. So I did. I worked my tail off. I worked traveling back and forth to Japan endlessly for years while he went to law school. And when he got done with law school, he said, "Babe, it's your turn. Stop traveling." We had 3 young kids now, right? By the
Mm-hmm.
time this happened, we had 3 kids. They needed me. I was missing everything. My youngest baby was traveling with a nanny with me back and forth to Japan starting at 3 weeks old.
Wow.
And he was like, this is enough. Like, let's stay home. Let's get you a business. I found a business that was for sale in our little town. And it was a business that was pitched to me as bring your kids to work kind of a thing. And I
Mm.
was going to go from never seeing my kids to being with them all the time, which is all I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I settled down in like 2017 and bought a business called the Little Gym.
And what business is that?
It was a kids gymnastics facility.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'd gone to
So,
college on a scholarship for ballet and saxophone, so it didn't seem terribly far
oh,
off.
wow. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So, how were the first few years of owning your own business?
It was a lot of work,
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of work. I'll be honest, the company was not entirely honest with me on the figures, on like, they were very dishonest to get me to buy it.
Yeah.
The third day I owned it, the woman I was buying it from was supposed to overlap with me for like 4 to 6 months of training. She disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
The third day, I didn't know what I was doing. The fourth
Wow.
day, the police showed up and told me she'd been running like fraudulent credit card charges and tried to arrest me thinking I was her. It was a
Oh
circus. It was a
my
circus.
gosh.
Yeah, this was a franchise that allowed all of, like, I can't.
Wow.
But no matter what, I decided I was going to be okay. I worked my tail off. I mean, I worked 90-hour weeks every week.
Mm.
I saved and reinvested every penny. I made good for everyone in the community she'd screwed over. I built this amazing community. We worked our way up to 500 students. It was
Wow.
just like really like we made it. We did it. It was
Yeah.
great. We built the most amazing, spectacular community. And then COVID happened.
Yep. Womp
Yay.
womp.
Womp womp. Literally, like it was so sad. On March, it was like March 5th, I think, of 2020. I had a call with our chief financial officer,
Hmm.
and he said to me, "Congratulations." And it was my in the black phone call on March 5th. And on March 13th, we were shut down.
Wow.
Yeah, it sucked. But we fought our way through that. We made it work. We survived, barely.
Did you get like PPP loans or anything?
We did, but like my county had the second largest or like the second longest closure for children's recreation in the United States. So we were closed for
Wow.
almost 17 months.
Wow. Yeah, I think my state's probably the first. We're in Michigan. Yeah,
California was ahead of us. You were probably
oh,
right
really?
behind me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had some of the worst lockdowns. And I mean, I'll never forget the story that a barber said he was taking clients. They had a mask. It was just one on one. And they went and got rid of his license to be a barber because the governor was so upset. And then our governor went to up north to the bar, and there's literally photos of her with all her friends at the bar, and it's like you just destroyed a small business and now you're celebrating. It's just like the audacity of these people, and like they have no idea. They have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like small businesses pay, first of all, the the impact just on a community that a small business has, like exactly like what you were talking about, 500 kids coming, and I'm sure it was amazing for their physical health and mental health. um Small businesses are usually the ones like hiring the teenage students out of school and stuff, and on top of that, small businesses are also, paying taxes. A lot of corporations, mega corporations, are not paying taxes. So who do you think is actually paying everything? It's us small people,
I do
And
tend to offer like a clarifying remark on taxes because it's so easy to say that they pay no taxes. There's a good chance they're paying no corporate taxes. But if
Mhm.
you own a business that has employees, you don't realize how much employment tax we're matching.
Yeah.
So like even as a small business in a single year, I was paying 96,000 just in employment taxes.
Mhm.
As a
Yeah.
small business I wasn't paying myself anything. Remember, I had committed to reinvesting everything to get out of debt. So I was paying myself nothing and still paying, and like we were barely getting there, and we were in
Yeah.
the negative, and I was still paying almost 100,000 in taxes a year.
It's crazy. And like you just breathe nowadays and you're taxed on something.
Oh yeah, oh
So
yeah.
it makes me really nervous when they talk about, Democrats a lot say like tax the rich, which they, when you actually dig into it, what they're advocating for is an increase in corporate tax. Well, corporate taxes, 60, I think it's like 60% of corporations are actually small businesses. So those are the ones you're going to hurt because the mega corporations, they're getting the tax cuts. So they're not even paying the 21% that's on the books today. So
Yeah.
we need to be really careful when we talk about taxing the rich because it almost always ends up falling on small businesses.
I'm gonna correct your figure there. In the United States, 99.9% of all businesses are small
Yes,
businesses.
but yes, 99.9 are small businesses, but the legal structure of being a corporation, I think it's like 60 or 66% are small businesses. The rest are LLCs, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay,
So
so you're not
LLCs
counting the
pay
L's.
different tax structure. So
I'm
yes,
turning on. I apologize. I'm gonna turn on my heater. I'm freezing.
you're fine.
Come on, I'm cold. I'm in my barn.
It was so funny when you text me that. I'm like, you literally are going to your barn, or is that just an expression?
Yeah, no, this is my barn. My husband's law office is over there, and my sewing room is over here.
So cool. One
Yeah,
day
we
I
share a
will
room.
get a sewing room. Right now, this is my upstairs office. I have my serger in here. I have my regular sewing machine on my
My
first
serger,
floor.
right there's my serger.
My regular sewing machine is under my coffee station, and all of my
Oh,
fabric is and all of my fabric is in my basement. So on
I would
every
need my
floor.
whole basement. I
Yeah.
would need the whole thing for my fabric.
That's so funny. But yeah, so it's cool that we have that in common.
Yeah, I didn't know
Um
you sewed, so that's exciting.
yeah. I'm getting there.
I won
I
first place in the fair this year in boys' clothing,
really, that's so
and I won
awesome.
second place in blankets,
Mm.
and I won first place with the the best of show in like general clothing pieces. I made a hoodie.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was
I'm
very
really
proud.
Most of the clothes I make are like summer appropriate. Like I love making dresses and skirts. So it'll be my time to shine soon enough when it warms up. But okay, so you were closed down for 17 months. I mean, what did you do in the meantime? Just stayed home?
No, 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 no. That would have been impossible because I didn't
Yeah.
want my employees laid off. I didn't want my employees.
Mm,
One, if I had lost my employee base, gymnastics is skilled labor. If I had lost them, it would have been very hard to start up again, like almost impossible, because they
mm,
could have gone just across Virginia's border and kept working. So we remade ourselves. What we did was, because our schools were in a very long lockdown, again, almost 17 months, um, is we turned our facility into a like a virtual school where we had only, I think, doctors, teachers, and nurses, kids. They would bring their laptops and they would do school from our facility. We got a special
mm.
waiver to allow us to have 18 kids on site. And
Okay.
so we built a pod where we turned our gymnastics teachers into school tutors. And we would help these kids do school all day while their parents were at the hospitals or while their parents were teaching other people's kids.
Well, what a great way to adapt, though,
It,
honestly.
it was really hard.
Yeah.
And it went from us having 500 students to having 18.
Yeah.
Financially, it was ruinous. But if I had anything to say that was helpful, it was that when we were shut down, it was just before summer. And our business model was always slower in the summer. So we would save all year to survive summer. So I had
Gotcha.
saved almost $75,000 to survive
Mm,
summer.
gotcha.
And because of that, until we started getting PPP and other money, we could keep paying our employees and we could rebuild. But it was very scary. And I
Hmm.
ended up running out eventually. You know, we kept thinking we're going to get to open. Oh, we'll get to open. And it just never came. So we were whittling down, and then we would get a PPP influx, and then we would whittle down, and then we would get a grant. And then like it was just always like the last 2 weeks where there was nothing left to give. And then something would happen and we would survive. And um anyway, coming out of COVID, basically all children's businesses in the United States, just like all restaurants, suffered immensely.
Hmm.
All daycare centers, there's a lot of business structures that suffered really badly. And naturally, there's always going to be some evil succubus that's there ready to exploit human suffering for their own financial gain. And for many of us, that came in the form of a private equity firm. In my case, it came in the form of 4 private equity firms who got together, formed this umbrella called Unleash Brands, and started buying up children's businesses in exploitative, hostile takeovers.
Wow. So how did they approach you?
No, no, I got no say because I had a franchise. It's like the equivalent of buying the McDonald's logo, but not every McDonald's. I had the
Wow.
equivalent of a McDonald's. Mine was a franchise. I owned my location, but I had no ownership say in the brand and the programming and the lesson plans
Wow.
and the intellectual property. So they bought the brand. It was really
Mm.
horrifying because the brand had been family owned and operated for 46 years. Nobody, like the brand was like a family,
Wow.
genuinely. Like everyone, like the CEO was a baby at the first little gym.
I'm like getting chills right now. Like seriously, like it's just disgusting. It's just it's horrific. And we both followed Kennedy a lot during his campaign, and he talked about this all the time that they closed down all of the small businesses and many never reopen.
Yep.
And we had the biggest transfer of wealth. All of the small business wealth went to the top 1%. And
Yep.
it's insane because our
One of
small businesses are the ones, like I said, like that are taking care of our communities. The big businesses don't care about your local community.
no, they do not. Bobby always said, like I was on his podcast about this issue, right? And he always says, in the 505 days of lockdown, 551 new billionaires were made.
Yeah.
The government chose every one of them and chose thousands of small businesses that were sacrificed in effigy. You know, that's what we did. We sacrificed 1,000 small businesses for one billionaire over and over again. And when you think about the fact that big business is very good at economizing, right? So over the last 15 years, 98.9% of all of the jobs created were created by small business, while almost 90% of the layoffs or reductions in workforce were created by the big businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And that's because they're very good at becoming more efficient by exploiting more labor or
Mm-hmm.
less labor for more productivity. Right. And so you get that productivity for fewer labor. They give less wages. They give less and less and less. And small businesses are endlessly trying to do the right thing, trying to give back to their community, because if they have a bad name in their community, they don't make it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I
while
mean, we have a new tea shop in town, and every single time I go in, they've hired a new person because they're doing so well. The
yeah,
big businesses are not doing that. The big
no,
businesses are laying people off while our small businesses are making our community. And like I said, oftentimes it's people in the community that they're hiring, or even, your teenage kid or whatever that needs a summer job. That's where they're going to go, and they're going to be taken care of, like you said.
yeah.
Man.
Well, when the takeover took place, like to give you an idea of how they wanted to let us know how evil they were right out of the gate, we were all told to dial in for a marketing update phone call. And we didn't know that they were taking over. We had no idea what was happening. We thought we were getting a new marketing partner. We were all so excited because we were just coming out of COVID and we were drowning.
Yeah.
We were so scared. We logged in. Everybody's eyes were red. Everybody was crying. We didn't know what had happened. This cocky piece of named Michael Browning like popped his face in the screen. It was like, just fired your CEO, your CFO, and half the board of directors. I'm your new CEO. Welcome. Like just like that. Everybody was crying all around him. Everybody was sobbing. And
I
like
just don't even know what to say to that. Like,
it
that's
was
so, I
so
don't even,
vile. It was so vulgar. It was so
wow.
gross. But
Narcissist 101. Like, let me show you how much power I have over you. Like,
yeah,
I can just make your job disappear.
he
Wow.
he's a nepo baby. His daddy was like a big shot at Duke Energy. Now he's the CEO of Browning Investments.
Hmm.
And he's got a lot to prove, apparently. It's not
Yeah.
working, though, because he has no reputation now, thanks to yours truly. So you're
Man.
welcome, Michael Browning. You're welcome. Sorry, Michael O. Browning Jr. Senior, you must be so proud.
Yeah, let's put a name to these people. Kennedy did that too with someone. I forgot the guy's name, but when he talks about the guy that hid that Roundup causes cancer, he always mentions his name because he's like, I don't want him to sleep easy. And I'm sure that's what you're feeling right now. I don't want him
Yeah.
to sleep easy, what he's done to these small businesses.
I had the incredible misfortune when they bought us of being the president of our franchise association.
Hmm.
I was very proud to be the president that was advocating for the other franchisees, incredibly honored. We knew when he bought us that he was going to try to destroy us because we were the sixth company they purchased. And we went and we did research. We saw that they'd already had class action lawsuits filed against them from the companies that came before us. We knew that they were going to target the franchise association. We knew they were going to try to break us up. I even tried to warn everybody about the exact documents they would use because I'd pulled the legal records and seen what they had done at the previous
Wow.
lawsuits. But the problem was that everyone at the little gym, honestly, the only way I can describe it is naivete. We had been a family with an amazing corporate culture. And like our annual conference was called Family Reunion. And everybody brought their kids and we all hung out together for a weekend. And families did family activities together. Everyone knew each other. These guys didn't care. I'll never forget the first conference we went to. We went to bring our kids. They gave us 3 weeks notice that we had to be there or else. And we said, okay, well, where do our kids, where do we buy the kids tickets? They're like, your children aren't welcome.
Hmm.
We're like, we're a kids company.
At a kids company.
They're like, your children are not welcome. This isn't family. This is business. And it was like, oh.
Do you know how many franchises there were?
Yeah, we had 200, like, I think it was 286.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened? How long until shit really hit the fan?
Weeks. Literally
Wow.
like weeks. Their ownership became final November 6th, but it was before that, when they were still our marketing partner, that they told us that they needed us to sign a new ACH agreement. They presented it very innocuously, like, hey guys, our new payment system doesn't work with your old one. We just need you to sign this sheet of paper. It's no big deal.
Wow.
And unfortunately, that naivete I was telling you about really shone through. People started signing it and sending it back before I even saw it. Once I saw it, I was like,
Wow.
oh my God, don't sign this.
Mhm.
Nobody signed this. Because buried in that fine print, it said this was the new governing document of our franchise agreement. You have to know franchise agreements last for a decade. So most of us had protections from them for a decade more.
Hmm.
Some 5 years, some 7 years, some 9 years, but we had protection. And quite literally, these documents they sent us acting like it was just a quick payment update form were changing our entire contract. It was
Wow.
expanding their access to what they could take from us. It was making it so they could automatically just take money out of our bank accounts for anything they wanted. It was bonkers. And so, like, I want to say almost 60 or 70% of people signed it and sent it back before they even knew what was happening.
Wow.
Because it didn't look scary to them. They said it was just an updated ACH agreement, but it wasn't. They didn't say this is a permanent change to your franchise agreement. It said it buried in the small print, but they trusted them because they'd always been able to trust their corporate office.
Yeah.
Then came the second round of documents, and these we knew were coming because we'd seen it in the class action lawsuits before us. The second round of documents were far more nefarious. Like, quite literally, they said it was going to be a technology update to help us with our marketing. It was a marketing initiative. And they asked for volunteers. Everybody was scared. Everyone wanted to get closer to the home office so they could feel like they were safe. So people volunteered for the pilot program. One morning, I get this phone call. I'll say afternoon. One afternoon, I get this phone call from one of the members of the pilot program. And he was freaking out. He's like, Tiffany, I'm on this call with the marketing initiative, and can I patch you in? I need you to listen and tell me what to do. I'm so scared. I'm not a lawyer, but my husband is a lawyer, right? And so I'm calling my husband over. We're listening in to this meeting we were not invited to. And they're saying to them, you have 30 minutes to sign the contract we're going to send you right now. If you don't sign it, all of your committee appointments are revoked, and we won't take it lightly. Basically, we will punish you. These contracts said that everybody was going to agree that this was the new governing franchise agreement. Remember, no law could make them change their agreements. They had protections from this. It said this was the new governing document. It said that they were agreeing that they were now going to use a call center, and that call center was going to cost an unlimited amount of money that would not be disclosed, that they would agree to it. And in addition to the call center fees, they would also pay the salaries of everyone who worked there. They would pay for any upgrades they deemed necessary. They would pay for all technology fees. They would pay for all leadership fees. They would pay for all of the board of directors. They would pay for whatever the share was of any operating expenses. And they would start paying commissions to everyone in there for everything they booked. We were already booking. And so what it did was, if you looked at, like, just say a birthday party, okay, because we had a kids business, regular birthday party, let's say it was $200. Okay, it's not, usually they're more, but let's just use a round number, $200. Prior to this, we would have paid $16 in royalties, $8 per 100.
Okay.
In this instance, in addition to our 8% in royalties, we would have paid a $5 booking fee, a $5 commission for booking the party, a $5 commission for every single upgrade, the full $16 in royalties. And if they did more add-ons, we would pay commissions on that. When we looked at it, it was raising the amount we were paying corporate by 74%.
Oh my gosh.
We were already bankrupt from COVID. And worse, at the bottom was this area that made it look like you had a choice. It said you could opt in or you could opt out. And that made people think they had the choice. It was an illusion of choice, because in the fine print below it, it said, regardless of your decision to opt in or opt out, you are agreeing that you will run your business using a professional call center. If you choose not to use ours, you are committing to creating your own or contracting another that aligns with all of our requirements. First of all, none of us were qualified to run a professional call center. It said that if you
Wow.
failed to run a call center to their standards, they could terminate your gym. It could take your business. It also said, if you fail, we get to opt you in anyway. And regardless of which way you choose, this is now the governing document in your franchise agreement, which meant you have agreed that a call center is now something that you've committed to, when that was never allowed in our contracts. And federal law doesn't allow them to change it.
Yeah.
So it looked like there was an opt-in. On this phone call I was listening to in this pilot program, they're like, you have 30 minutes, sign it now. They're like, what about seeing our lawyers? You don't have time for that. You're going to choose now. Everyone's opting in. They're like, what if this doesn't work? What if our customers are upset? What if a mom calls in with a baby with autism and she wants to know which one of my teachers is the best teacher for her child with special needs that is 3 months older than that age group, but socially 3 months younger? Like,
Yeah.
how's a call center going to know that? They
Mm-hmm.
were asking all the right questions, and they lied through their teeth, looked at these people and said, don't worry. If you opt in, you can always opt out of the contract later.
Oh my gosh. And really, I mean, like, that's signing a contract under duress. I mean,
Yeah,
that
it
is
is.
horrible.
It absolutely is. And I'll never forget. We had a video chat where the CEO was on, and he made us turn our videos on. This is during COVID. Most of us were teaching children. They called us to this meeting on very short notice, and he told us that we were all going to like dial into this app that would let them keep tabs on us. This was like just a few weeks in, and he said, I'm watching. And then he started writing down the names of everyone that wasn't downloading the app where he could watch us.
Wow.
It was so intimidating.
I
There
mean,
was
this,
a separate video where he got on, and it was directed at me. And he said he was sick of people creating malcontent or disunity. And he said that anyone that went onto our Facebook group and created further disunity and didn't fall in line would be helped to exit immediately.
I mean, it just sounds like a third world country. Like, this is
Well,
not the American dream.
no,
Like,
it
this
is
is
not.
insane. And you had no choice over any of this. That's crazy. It's not like you made a mistake and then you wound up here.
Yeah,
Like, this was all outside of your control.
yeah.
It's crazy. So, when did things really turn from here?
Well, the new document that they'd sent out to the oh God, what was the word I was using? The like test pool.
Oh, pilot
The
program.
other pilot pool of people.
Hmm.
We got ahead of that one. Nobody was signing that one like they did the ACH agreement. We met as a team. We got our lawyers together, and they were like, absolutely not. Do
Mm,
not sign this document. And we waged a blockade. We held the line. All of us were like, no.
good.
Like, good luck. And it was 96% of us that had joined the union at this point.
Oh, wow.
So we waged a blockade, and they said, you will sign it. And we said, good luck. We're not doing it. None of us, not one of us. You won't be able
Wow.
to extort a single one of us because you can't make us. The ones who weren't even involved were the Canadian gyms, and they couldn't make them because their laws are better. So we waged a blockade. They said, you will sign it. And then they sent out threats of termination. They sent out default notices. And it terrified everyone.
But, like, how can they do that if
They
you,
can't.
like,
It was
okay.
absolutely fake. They told them that they had the right because, I mean, they could do it, but who had the money to go fight them in court to prove they were wrong? That's the thing. Everyone thinks that a contract will protect you. A contract only protects you if you can afford to go and defend it.
Yep.
If you can't afford it, there is no justice for you in this country.
Hmm.
That's been a really hard lesson that I've learned, because what happened was, after they sent out the default notices, we hired a very high powered law firm. All together, we pooled all our money. We hired this big company. They sent them a notice that none of us would sign it, that we were waging a communications blockade until we went to mediation with them, like our contract allowed. And the next day they terminated me to make an example of me.
From your own business?
Yes.
Wow.
I received a notice of termination 24 hours later. They said it was not related to the notice, of course.
Sure.
Of course. It came out later. They were like, we didn't even know there was a union. And then they said, we didn't even know she was the president. And we didn't know they were going to send us a letter. Fascinatingly, a lawyer from a law firm came forward a month later and said they called them the day before to ask if our union was sending them a letter through them. They didn't know we existed, though, everybody.
Yeah.
They didn't know it. So they terminated me and almost immediately set about doing what we knew they were going to do. We knew they were going to try to break up the union. We knew they had done this at the other brands. We had warned everybody, but I don't think anybody could have predicted how horrible it would be.
Yeah.
Within just a few days of terminating my business and taking away everything I'd ever worked for, a business I had worked 6 years in and never taken a paycheck, because
Just
I had
crazy.
gotten to my in the black the week before we were shut down due to COVID. And then I killed myself to keep us afloat during COVID and did not pay myself. I worked 6 years without a paycheck to serve children, most of them special needs. And in a moment, they were like, you don't have it anymore. I wasn't in default. I didn't owe them any money. I wasn't in debt. I owed nobody, nothing. Like, I hadn't done anything wrong. The only thing that I was in default for was they sent me a default notice for refusing to sign the ACH agreement that changed my contract, which is illegal.
Which
you
is
cannot
illegal.
force someone to change their contract. That's what they put me in default for, was refusing to give up my rights.
Yeah.
So just a few days after that, they sent a letter to every member of the association saying that I was abusing my customers, that I was insinuating that I was stealing money from the association. They said that I owed like tens of thousands of dollars to the home office. I did not. I never owed them a dime. I was fully current on all my payments. What they didn't say is that I was sending them checks because I wouldn't update my ACH agreement and they were refusing to cash them. But I did pay them. So like they sent out the letter from their chief legal officer, this absolute raging bag of D's called Stephen Polizzola. And all of these owners, most of them, these were high school athletes or college athletes. These were very hardworking people dedicated to kids, but most of them were not, they didn't have law degrees. They didn't know that they all thought a lawyer couldn't lie to them, but they weren't the lawyer's client. A lawyer can lie to anybody as long as it's not their client.
Yeah.
And they weren't, and so they believed this lawyer. And immediately the infighting began, which is exactly what they wanted. Half of the union was like, she is stealing from us. They said so. Like, what do we do? Like, maybe she was supposed to be terminated. The other half were like, we're standing with her. She told us this was going to happen. Like, we knew this. We saw the documents from the other associations.
Yeah.
And immediately it broke into two. Immediately. It took weeks. It was so effective. A few weeks after that, they paid my landlord a $120,000 bribe.
Here, do me a favor real quick. Move your mic out of your shirt a little bit more. It's rubbing. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they paid my landlord a $120,000 wire transfer to not renew my lease. Yeah.
Holy crap. And like, what did your landlord say to you?
So it's the funniest thing during COVID. It is hard for me to articulate how supportive my landlord was. His name was Mike. And every time I was going to give up and shudder, he would talk me into fighting a little longer.
Wow.
Every time I said I didn't want to keep holding his space when I couldn't pay rent, he said it. There were times where he's like, I think it would be illegal for me to ask you for rent because like you can't be open. And so he told me that he didn't want me to pay rent while we were closed. Told me in writing, told me on the phone, told me over text message.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to renew my lease. He said they actually called him right before my deposition and asked about the standing of my lease. And he told them I was month to month because he thought my lease had been over a few months earlier. I was just still there plugging along. He was wrong. My lease wasn't up yet. He just guessed. The day of my deposition, they showed up. They had the letter from my landlord telling me I was getting kicked out. He didn't even give it to me. They did.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were there for like 6 years?
5.
5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I really just thought he was the best guy. And then
And
they
like,
gave
yeah,
him all that money.
I understand it's a lot of money, but is it really worth it to sell out your values? You
And that's
know?
what killed me is like I realized during COVID I wasn't paying rent because he told me not to. And like I would have had to shut down if I'd had to pay rent. Like that's just facts. Like I never could have made it. He was so supportive. I told our parents constantly to do business with him. Like I really like just I can't. The day we got to reopen, the first phone call I made was to my landlord in tears. I sobbed on the phone with him and told him he was never going to regret supporting me, that I was going to be the tenant he would have for decades, that I was going to spend every day making it up to him for keeping me going.
Wow.
And when he kicked me out, that was like, it was so hard.
Yeah.
That was like the first wake up that their money could do just about anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was wild.
See, if I was your landlord, I would take that money and be like, yeah, I won't renew the lease. And then I'd give you half of it to go find a different.
Oh, well, what they were actually buying with that money was my lease for a year. They leased it for the year after it. And in the lease, they made him put in a clause that he could never lease to me again in any building. He could lease to anyone in Frederick County with the exception of Tiffany Cianci.
Crazy.
In the lease, it said he could never lease to me again.
Wow.
Crazy enough, I told him they would screw him over. I told him they would. That building is still sitting empty. They did not renew it. They did not keep it like they promised him. And so he's lost like $350,000 that
Oh
I
my
would have paid.
gosh.
I was paying him. We had reopened at this point. I was paying him like $11,000 a month in rent.
Wow. So karma is real.
Well, I mean, I wish I could say that was true. At one point, down the road, we had a deposition with him. And in the deposition, they had prepped him. You could tell they had prepped him.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in and they kept saying, does she owe you money? Because one of the ways they could terminate me is if I owed someone money. I had to pay my vendors. And he was like, well, I told her not. And they're like, did you ever formally change the lease? And he was like, no. And they would keep correcting him, right? And at one point, I finally just looked at my lawyer and I'm like, ask him if he told me not to pay. I'm not going to ask him that. We're not going to get the right answer. I said, ask him. And he asked him, he's like, Mike, did you tell her she would never have to pay this money back? And he's like, yeah, I did. And then they paid a lawyer to sue me on his behalf too.
Oh my gosh.
For the money that he told me not to pay and testified he told me not to pay.
Wow. So let's back up a little bit. So we're talking about lawsuit. What did they sue you over originally? Or did you sue them? What happened here?
So I didn't sue them. I filed for an injunction to stop them from terminating me. I filed for an injunction we were required to file in Arizona because that's what our contract said. I did that on, I think it was May 23rd, 2022. They started negotiating with me. They said that they thought that I could get put back in the system, that everybody needed to calm down. This was a mistake. When their lawyers got involved, they were like, whoa, 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 whoa. They made me think I was going to get to go back to my gym.
Wow.
During that time, they had a lawyer named Norman Leon. And Norman Leon specifically told me to keep operating my gym, even though I was terminated. Explicitly stated I should do that. During that time, they sent in private investigators to take photos of my facility to use as proof that I was violating their trademarks because I was terminated and still using them. after they explicitly instructed me to continue operating. They were
Oh
just
my
creating the
gosh.
circumstances to sue me for trademark infringement.
Wow. So that's the case, is trademark infringement?
So that was part of it. I debranded after all of that. After they decided to sue me, I debranded and I said, well, I'll rebuild something new. And I formed a partnership with a company called Kinder Music, which is music classes. And I remember I had a degree in music. I was better
Yeah.
suited for music than gymnastics. And so I switched to music classes. And they sued me for a non-compete violation as well. They sued me for using their trade secrets. They sued me for copyright infringement. They lost all of those cases, by the way,
Oh, wow.
but
That's
not before
awesome.
spending, millions and millions of dollars to drown me in legal fees.
So did they have to pay back any of your costs for that?
No,
Oh, lovely.
no, it's worse actually. During that, um, they started hiring private investigators to follow me, to stalk me, to stalk my employees. They sent in lawyers for an attorney's eyes only inspection of my facility to prove that I had taken down all the trademarks and everything. It was supposed to be attorney's eyes only in my office. I have photos of their vice president, who's not a lawyer. She came in and told me she worked at the law firm and she was with the law firm, lied about who she was, and I have photos of them stealing my employee files.
Oh my gosh.
They, I had an adults with autism training program for my employees. They started harassing my adults with autism to the point where the county was canceling my program because they couldn't keep them mentally safe from these people.
Oh my gosh.
As I mentioned, they sent out letters saying I was abusing kids and staff members. They were destroying my reputation
I was just about
daily.
to ask, like, what did this do, like, for your community? Like, did people start to turn on you?
Yeah, yeah. And then there came a point where the New York Times was writing about me. I was going to be on the cover of the New York Times. It was going to be at the end of November, early December of 2022. And when they got sent for comment, in an effort, I believe, to stall the article from coming out, this is, I'll say allegedly for educational purposes only, right? Um, Suddenly 6 letters were sent, like anonymously, to the New York Times. They ended up being traced to a company called ICR Management, which was their PR firm.
Mm.
And they told the New York Times I was running a drug trafficking ring from my baby gym. And the New
I don't
York
know,
Times,
Tiffany. I think you can do a lot of things, but I don't think you're capable of that.
it was
Like, I
wild.
gotta
One
say.
of the letters, let me tell you about the economics of drug trafficking. One of the letters said, and I quote, well, this will be like, I'll paraphrase,
Paraphrase.
that I was using my drugs to pay the parents to bring their kids to my gymnastics classes, that I was also paying the teachers to teach and the rent to host.
With your drugs. All with your
Right.
drugs.
I'm like, I don't know if you know how drug trafficking works, but it's not usually that you pay people to come somewhere so you can pay other people to teach their kids. That is generally not how drug trafficking works, as I understand it from watching Cops.
Oh
I've
my
seen
gosh.
Criminal Minds. Like, I don't think that's how it works. But what it
And
did
what
do,
they're accusing you of is criminal behavior. And yet, did the FBI ever call you? I mean, did the police ever show up at your door?
great question. Actually, unfortunately, because my husband was one of our owners and he's a federal attorney, he had to self report to the ethics office at work.
Wow.
And I had to, the New York Times halted print of the article. And they sent out investigators, and I had to go to the sheriff's office and ask them to investigate me for drug trafficking.
Wow. So you had to turn in yourself for fraudulent shit.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, I don't understand.
It was so humiliating. The officer that was standing there when I went up to report myself was the parent of one of my students. And his son had a kidney disease, the same kidney disease that my daughter had. He and I had done a bunch of Make-A-Wishes together. We had granted wishes together
Ugh,
for
I should
children
have
with
had
kidney
tissues for
cancer.
this conversation. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
it was wild. And the New York Times ended up taking 5 extra weeks to publish the article while they investigated these allegations, right?
Mhm.
Um, but what happened during that 5 weeks? Do you want to know what happened?
Mm.
All of their private equity investments were consolidated and transferred to a brand new private equity firm that gave them almost $1 billion during that 5 weeks while they were able to stave off the article being printed.
Wow.
So they got almost $1 billion. I don't think they would have gotten if the article had come out earlier.
Wow.
Because it was a big investigative piece. And this investigative article was very damning because it wasn't just about our business. It was about all the businesses they were defrauding and bankrupting.
Mhm. Yeah.
The week after that, they made me pay for the New York Times article pretty dearly.
What happened?
I was pregnant, and they had an active discovery request for my medical records in the case, not because they should have been entitled to them, but because the pay-to-play, bought and paid for corrupt arbitrator they were paying $27,000 a week to be our judge gave them anything they asked for. And they learned that I was having a very difficult pregnancy. My blood pressure just couldn't stabilize, and I was too stressed. And I had something called a subchorionic hematoma, which is like a little bubble of blood wrapped around the baby. And when your blood pressure is too high, it can cause bleeding. And they doubled their filings against me while my doctor was calling for a ceasefire. And then they started subpoenaing me to Arizona so that I would have to travel even though I was on bed rest. And when my lawyer said I couldn't go, they went to the judge and they filed a motion to compel me to schedule an abortion I did not want. Because, hey, I was going to lose the baby anyway, right?
It's just insane. Like they're
Yeah,
all criminals.
I know.
And it's just every single person needs to hear this because this can't keep happening. Because if it's happened to you, it's happened to other people.
You know, I was testifying in the legislature today and I was meeting with all of these legislators, and I cannot tell you, 5 of them in a row were like, no law firm could ever file that motion. I was like, you want to see it? I literally had to pull out the motion because no one ever believes me until they read it. Ever. Why would
Mhm.
they? No one wants to believe this can happen in America, but what people don't understand is that all of these contracts have something called an arbitration clause in them that forces you into a secret courtroom with a judge they are paying for. And they're not paying for them for your case. They've been paying for them for case after case after case. And this judge relies on them for their $27,000 or $35,000 a week. And if they piss them off, they end up on their strike list. So they're always going to rule for them. It's
So was
created
this in
this like,
your original contract, the arbitration?
yeah,
Yeah.
every franchisor has it.
And you know what? I was gonna pull up like the Constitution. I forgot what article it is, but
7.
um where we have a right to sue anyone for anything over $20.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how that has been so abused. I mean, we see it like I guess it doesn't say where you can sue people, so that's probably where they get this arbitration court.
No,
But it's so wrong. It shouldn't this whole thing, this whole system should be shut down. We have 3 branches of government that the
yeah.
Constitution lays out very clearly. And we should be able to sue in our own courts, publicly funded courts. Like, I just don't understand how this is even allowed. Like, it's insane to me.
Um, so there's 2 things that get in the way of this. The Federal Arbitration Act was created by Congress. It was created with good intentions. Uh, it was created to help deal with very nuanced, large-scale legal disputes, mostly marine law early on. Marine law is a very niche area of the law. Telecom law is another niche area of the law. And what happened was these big companies petitioned Congress for the Federal Arbitration Act. Basically, what it was is they didn't want to risk getting assigned over these huge cases for mergers and acquisitions and stuff, getting assigned to some random judge that has no knowledge of marine law.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they would do is they asked for a way for both parties to come together and choose a judge that had what they were looking for, so that they didn't both waste millions of dollars just teaching the judge the law
Yeah.
on a topic. But it has been so bastardized since then. It was initially designed for two parties with unlimited resources that were on equal financial footing to do this together. What's happened now is that the cell phone in your hand has 5 arbitration agreements. The washing machine you bought at Best Buy had an arbitration agreement forced on you in the warranty paperwork that was in the box that you never even got to read.
Wow.
And the ticket you bought from Ticketmaster that screwed you over when you were trying to get Taylor Swift tickets has it printed on the back of the ticket stub. You didn't know that. You didn't agree to that. And the
Mm-hmm.
birthday party your kid went to at Urban Air Trampoline and Adventure Park. You signed your kid in on an iPad to go to a birthday party, not realizing there was 93 pages of disclosures under that. And then you were forfeiting your right, if your child got hurt, to going to court.
Yeah.
Everything has an arbitration agreement now. And because the system is run by a cartel, really, of two companies, one called JAMS and one called AAA. AAA is the American Arbitration Association. They're the worst. JAMS is almost as bad. And these two companies control all of arbitration in the United States, like 97% of the market share. And when you look at the way that it operates, there is a strong financial impetus on these judges, these arbitrators, to always find for the corporate clients because they are repeat business. I will never be a repeat customer for them. I can't afford it. These guys are going to be in trouble over and over and over again. And if you are the judge they like, they will keep choosing you.
So is there a jury? Is it set up
No.
like a normal court?
And it's worse than that. The law has made it so that the arbitrators aren't even required to follow the law. They can make up their own law.
How convenient.
So if they want to force somebody to have an abortion, I guess they can just do that.
It's criminal. And this law needs to be challenged to the Supreme Court. I mean, I would argue that it
It's
goes
been
outside the
challenged.
scope.
It's been challenged like
crazy.
17 times, and Roberts keeps agreeing with it.
Wow.
He's quite committed. I apologize. I'm going to take my headphones off because I need to plug in. When you're in these arbitrations, first of all, they all come with a protective order and a confidentiality agreement. Your franchise agreement also comes with a non-disparagement clause, a confidentiality agreement, and an NDA. Okay? These are happening all across the United States. And over again, these judges, to give you an idea how biased it is, I just want to give you a metric. You are in the United States. This is a real number from the American Association, from Public Justice and the American Justice Projects. You are more likely to be struck by lightning and survive than you are to win an arbitration with a corporation in America.
It's crazy.
So why bother?
It's so crazy.
I won my defamation case in my arbitration. He granted me no damages because I couldn't afford the $25,000 expert to quantify what losing my reputation was worth. So he gave me nothing.
Wow. And if you were in a normal court, I'm sure you would have got hundreds of thousands.
Probably more.
Yeah. This is insane.
So
more. How are you able to talk if you had like NDA and everything? Is it because it's over now, or?
It's because I won my defamation case.
Okay.
And I'm allowed to clear my name.
Gotcha.
Because
so are there any more cases going on?
So many. Wow. Like, I know that my life sounds like a Lifetime movie. I get that. I fully get that this sounds bonkers. But this is happening to tens of thousands of small businesses every day, and they're not allowed to talk about it. I
Yeah.
speak for them. I have
Yeah.
testified in multiple cases for other people that are in this exact situation just this year alone. And one of the things that's been really hard is that like right after the New York Times article came out, people started sending me their case files asking for help. They saw me and thought that that meant they had hope.
Yeah.
And they would come to me just asking me to do something, right? I couldn't do much of anything. But one of the things that came was this giant file of sealed case files from a case that was sealed by a judge and that he had ordered the destruction of all the evidence in. But I had it. And in these files were just the most, it was about the company I'm fighting and a case that had happened before ours. And in it, there was this letter that to me looked like it was between two lawyers. And it said that they wanted to reduce their EBITDA or increase their EBITDA. I'm gonna do my best to remember exactly how this was. And I'll just say allegedly for all of this because I don't have it right. State it. But at a certain point, it was recommended that these trampoline parks they owned should pull the secondary harness checkers for their zip lines that were like 35 feet off the floor over concrete floors and metal tables that kids were riding.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was like $9,000 a year per location. And if I recall correctly, actually, let me see if I can find it. Let me see how accurate I can be for you. Michael Browning on safety issues. That's the CEO that wakes up thinking of me every day. Michael has resisted the recommendations of Leap of Faith Adventures on numerous safety issues when building the parks. 1. Placing a person at the top of the Skyrider ramp makes the attraction less safe. The attraction needs 2 attendants to operate the attraction safely. Michael advised the park owner to only use 1 to manage the Skyrider, and an accident occurred. This was a shoot from the hip decision done without the consultation of Leap of Faith Adventures. That was their safety team. A Leap of Faith advised using 2 persons to operate the tethering and untethering from the attraction. Evan received numerous calls from concerned clients. Hold on, let me look at the next page. As to who made this decision. This exacerbated the potential for an even greater accident. There's like 5 paragraphs like this, but at one point it says that they were warned. Here, wait, where is it? Here we go. During the opening of the Bloomingdale, Illinois urban air, Michael discussed reducing the number of attendants from 2 to 1 on the Skyrider attraction, stating that eliminating an employee from an attraction can save almost $10,000 per year. This is in a $6 million building, by the way. That very same weekend in Ahwatukee, the Skyrider attraction had the 1 employee working when a major accident occurred. In Lofa's opinion, this short-term cost-saving mentality is of major concern. It is our opinion that these decisions that directly affect safety are not being made or implemented with proper research or forethought needed to keep any of these attractions running safely. What happened when he told them to get rid of that employee is that a little girl named Mia, who was 7 years old, fell off of a zip line to a concrete floor, broke all her bones, ruptured her organs, got permanent brain damage, is now blind, and has no emotions in her body. She can't love. She doesn't have any joy. She can't be sad. They destroyed her life. She's one of tons of people that fell all over the United States, dozens. But when these parents signed in at these like birthday party things at the front of their business of Urban Air, they were signing a non-disclosure agreement, non-disparagement clause, confidentiality agreement, and an arbitration clause. They didn't know it because you shouldn't need a lawyer to go to a birthday party.
Yep.
And so what happened is like one mom in like Illinois was like internally decapitated at her kid's party. Another guy in like Sugarland, Texas, got severely injured, like broke like half the bones in his body. Another one in Florida got like permanent brain damage and like was in a wheelchair. All over the US to save 10 grand a year in a park that's $6 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so those documents were sent to me. Do you think anything that said any of that was presented in any of those arbitrations? Nope, they weren't. And so when all these documents were sent to me, I started calling all those lawyers. Now I'm testifying in those cases.
Wow. Yeah, and if it was through normal courts, the company would be bankrupt by now, by how many times they've been sued.
From a purely libertarian perspective, right? Like people believe in the free market. Everybody says our free market is the best economy out there. I believe a free market capitalist economy is probably the best mechanism for economic mobility that exists in the world. The problem is we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
A free market economy requires, mandates transparency. When you have a place that is doing unsafe things, the public will see it and they will respond.
Mm-hmm.
They will wage boycotts. They will stop going to your business. You will get in trouble and you will be required to change or you will go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
But an economy where all of these businesses can hide their bad conduct behind arbitrations and confidentiality clauses, there is no free market. We have a free market that is blind. And that is a manipulated crony capitalist market. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. And I just talked about in my last episode that it's also not a free market because of all the subsidies government gives. That's not capitalism. So many people, especially young people, and I am young, so I can pick on us, say that they hate capitalism because of the current system. But we do not have capitalism right now. So people are mad at the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So what do we do about this? Like, we need to overturn this law, right? Like, we need a Congress that has a brain, and that's a huge task. I mean, this has been the most unproductive Congress in years.
Some are pretty close to Alzheimer's at this point, I think.
Yeah, I watch congressional hearings all the time, and I'm like, dude, like, I will put it at 2 times speed, and it sounds like they're talking normal. Like, it really is like the most expensive nursing home. So so you testified today. Was this anything to do with arbitration and stuff that you testified for?
Today was actually to pass a law that makes it illegal to retaliate for being part of a franchisee association. For being
awesome.
President or a member of a franchisee association. It also empowers the state to act on your behalf if a company's doing that to a Maryland franchisee.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, perfect world. I mean, like, what can we do? I mean, do you think that these companies could have criminal charges against them for how they treat you guys?
Probably not. But they are being investigated for retaliation and stuff like that through the Federal Trade Commission and the DOJ. There's been enough anti-competitive behavior, and some of the documents that were in that file I got showed them like flying in Chinese nationals to build their urban air adventure parks.
Oh,
circumventing like our laws. Some of the documents showed, literally it said that like if you didn't want to hire their labor, you should go buy a Mexican. Like it said, like this blatantly racist, horrifying language. There's a section, some of the documents they had in there demonstrated very clearly that there was one of their franchisees had a loan that required her it was a loan that was a Buy American loan, where it was for businesses to support other American businesses, a very unique like credit union loan.
Yeah.
And So she contacted them and said, hey, is this equipment made in America? If not, I want to pay more for equipment that's made in America. I don't mind if it's more. This is what my loan requires. They were like, just tell her it's made in America. Like, she doesn't need to know we get it from China. Like, just
Mhm.
like blatant, like fraud. But then there's this whole other arena where there's another company they bought called Premier Martial Arts. And Premier Martial Arts, just a huge fraud. They created this federal disclosure of their business model, and it was fabricated. It was made up, never existed in the way it was presented. And 700 territories were sold through this super corrupt brokerage called Franchise Fastlane. They got rich, Unleashed Brands got rich, and 700 territory owners went bankrupt. Many of them, large majorities of them, veterans.
Wow.
So, like, yes, the DOJ and the FTC could do something about this.
Yeah.
Um, and I know they're investigating because I've had to submit documents,
Oh, okay.
but it
Yeah,
doesn't,
because I just my
like
whole thing is I want to be able to do something. I mean, I don't have the biggest voice, but I think if we all put our minds together, like we can make enough noise. And yeah, so what do you think people can do today to help?
one, support small businesses.
Yeah.
Always choose a small business. Always.
Yeah.
You have the ability financially to support a small business instead of a mega corporation. For the love of God, do it.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to support a one-off business, a mom and pop, instead of a big brand name, please do it.
Mm.
They are dying out because everything is being monopolized and cannibalized.
Yeah.
You have to understand that every time you support one of these corporations owned by these oligarchs, these billionaires, these people, every dollar you put into this company, 89 cents of it is never coming back to your community. It is going to a pool of money for people that already have all the money. They're going
Mhm.
to hoard it like McDuck, and they're going to let like in their vaults, they're going to build their bunkers for when we finally wise up and things change. And that's what they're going to do. But when you're giving your money to a small business in your community, like 80 cents of that gets redistributed back into your community on
Yeah.
average.
Yeah, the businesses like in my small town, I am so involved in the chamber, everything I can because like anytime we have an event, like they go around to all the small businesses and they ask like, "Can you donate anything for a raffle prize?" And they always do. Like the coffee shop um tried everything they could to not raise prices even when milk was going up and everything after COVID, and they were still like donating for all of these events, and we have 10,000 events in town. And they're the ones that actually care about our space and are again hiring your teenagers and
Yeah.
everything. So it's so important. I will always support small business any way I can. It's just I can't stress enough how important it is. They're the ones that are investing in your community, and they are making your community better whether you realize it or not. Especially even just like the tax base, like the corporations often get waived property taxes and stuff. Well, the small businesses are still paying their taxes,
Yeah.
um, which goes to your community. So yeah, and if we can, if we get a chance to talk to our congresspeople, I feel like an email is not going to do it, but I feel like this is something you need to have a face-to-face conversation about to try to get that law changed.
I want to stress this. Like, I really want to stress that every state in America, there are 18 states in America that are called referendum states, where you don't have to wait for your do nothing legislatures, your horribly divided politicians to act. 18 states in the United States allow citizens to draft a law and submit it. You can do that.
Mhm.
Like, I really want to stress that we don't have to wait to be saved. They're not coming for us.
Yeah.
Private equity firms have acquired 73% of franchises, but they're acquiring every company in America, and they will bleed us dry like absolute parasites. They don't create anything but money for themselves. They don't give back anything but money to themselves.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest thing in the world to watch, like just one after another bite the dust. You know what I mean? But we have to protect our small businesses. 99% of the jobs created in this country are created by small business.
Yep.
99.9% of the businesses in this country are small businesses. And regardless of my crazy Lifetime Movie Network level story, right, which you guys only heard about a quarter of, you didn't even hear most of the bad stuff at all. Like, you guys haven't heard any of the real drama. Like, they're still suing me in 2 states right now, years later, right? You have to understand that in this country, you only get the justice you can afford. And there is a good chance, a very good chance, that small business owners all around you are fending off attacks, just trying to thrive. Not even thrive, just survive.
Survive. Yeah.
And you should take an active role in your local politics. You should also take an active role in your state and federal politics. And I know we're so dang tired. Everybody is so tired. But if saving your community isn't worth fighting for, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so thankful, as shitty as it sounds. I'm thankful that life put you here because you're fighting so hard and I see it. And you've built quite the community on TikTok talking about your story, and you've helped small businesses. You just don't stop. You just don't stop.
Work. We've passed 2 new policies at the Federal Trade Commission. We are in the process of passing laws in multiple states. I've testified before the U.S. Senate Small Business and Entrepreneurs Committee, the U.S. House Small Business and Entrepreneurs Committee, testified before like 14 legislatures now. I mean, like, we are making a difference.
That's awesome.
And we've done it largely fueled by people on the internet helping us every time we have a take action project.
Yeah.
So follow us, stick around, get involved. We have a go. Actually, we'll probably have it up and running by next week. The union president that took over after me, they sued her too, and they have decimated her because she actually sold her business and got out, and then they sued her.
Wow.
So she gave up everything she'd ever worked for, and they still sued her. And so now we're going to do a GoFundMe to help her with her appeal. So, like, there are these ways that you guys can make a difference. It actually, if it's done by then and you can tag it below, she needs our help. If you guys want to help support a small business, this woman needs our help.
Yeah.
These monsters, they are monsters. I don't have a better way to put it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm thankful that you still have fight in you. I'm thankful you shared your story with us. We need to get you in front of every news station shouting this, because this should not happen in America. This is not the American dream. My family came here from Italy for the American dream, and I don't think anyone would have envisioned this.
Yeah.
So it has to stop today. So anything that we can do, if it is just emailing your congressperson, encouraging them to take a look at this horrific law, donating.
Just changed it to require the arbitrators to follow the law. Like, and it's not without hope either. I just want to stress, there was a law passed like 2.5 years ago, HB, I think it's 4505 or 5405. Basically, one of these franchises, also based out of Arizona, where they hide their bad law, was called Massage Envy. Are you familiar?
No.
All right, Massage Envy is a big massage chain of franchises, and women were getting sexually assaulted and raped in their massage parlors.
Wow.
All over the US. And when you signed in on their app, it had a confidentiality agreement, an arbitration clause, and a non-disparagement clause. These women were barred from going to the press. They were threatened. What happened was 3 brave women decided they didn't care, and they went to the news, and it generated enough interest that a law was passed that made it illegal to force women or men into an arbitration for sexual assault or harassment. But up until then, women were being forced, and
Yeah.
men were forced into arbitrations in these corrupt courts after they were raped, after
It's
they were
crazy.
sexually assaulted, after they were abused. Right? Like, you have to understand, we are capable of changing these laws. That was one step. We need more steps.
Yeah. It really, I mean, it takes 2 days trending on X and we can get something done. I
Well,
mean, seriously.
pass a TikTok ban, and then we'll know.
Yeah.
It can be done. We just got to motivate them.
Exactly. Yeah, the TikTok ban proved that if Congress wants to, they would.
Well,
Seriously.
if Congress donors want to, they would.
Yeah, they got that law passed within a week, like on the president's desk, signed into law within a week. And then everything else, I mean, literally everything else, they say, Anna, it takes time. Like I'm complaining lately that the Trump administration is not being very transparent, not the kind of transparency we were promised.
Yep.
And people keep telling me it's only been 30 days, like calm down. And I'm like, what does 30 days have to do with transparency? Like you just like speak the truth. Like it's not that hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to hold their feet to the fire. We have to push for this. So anything else, Tiffany, you want to tell everyone before we head out? I mean, you are so incredible. And I really can't thank you enough for just fighting the good fight. I mean, seriously, you don't stop. And I appreciate you. But I do want you to take a vacation one day.
Okay. It's not this day. No, genuinely, like, I honestly, we didn't even get to talk about most of what I thought we were going to talk about tonight. I think maybe I talked too much about growing up or something, but truly just be awake, be aware, drive the extra 3 blocks to the small business, pay the extra $3 if you are able, feed your family, feed your kids, do what you have to do. But if you're able to go to that small business, do it. Like, truly. And if you're able to like follow along with us, I give people take action projects every 2 to 3 weeks that tell you guys how you can take part in trying to change a law or a policy. And our laws and policy changes are working. We can do this. We can do this.
Yeah, anytime you tell me I need you to do this, I'm on it. Okay, no hesitation. Let's get this done. So please make sure you're following Tiffany. Thank you so much for being on the show, and let's get to work. Let's make some change in this world. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.